I believe the ZIF connector on my Zune 2nd generation 80 gig needs to be replaced, but I want some confirmation before I actually spend money on this thing. I got it for $30 untested from my local Free Geek. Since I am a volunteer, I also looked at this thing initially. Now, I don't know if I was the cause of the ZIF connector dying or if it was like that when I got it. But prior to purchasing this thing, I did take it apart to make sure that it was not molested on the inside, and it was brand new on the inside, never opened up. Obviously, it has changed now since I've gotten the thing. But inside, it was brand new, never touched. So I don't know if I accidentally damaged the ZIF connector or not. But with that said, I can definitely say for certain the original drive in this thing is dead. Now, the key eye among you will recognize that this is an iPod Classic drive. This is a 30 gig iPod Classic drive, to be more precise, out of my 5th generation iPod Classic right here. And the current drive that's in here, or in the iPod Classic, is a drive from this right here. So another thing I want to note is neither this drive or the original drive that was in the Zune spins up when it's plugged into the Zune right here. The only time both hard drives spin up is when they're in my iPod Classic right here. But one thing you can tell right out of the gate with the iPod Classic is it's basically in a restore loop. So the hard drive from the Zune is clearly dead. So obviously the hard drive will need to be replaced on the Zune. And again, more than likely also the ZIF connector needs to be replaced from the Zune. So with that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this thing to restore one more time. And I'm going to disconnect the 30 gig drive from the Zune, and I'm going to show you what it does. So with the hard drive removed, I get the little splash screen, and then I get error code 5. So it is still able to detect the hard drive that's in there, but it's unable to spin it up. With that said, I'm going to take the the 30 gig drive from the iPod Classic that refuses to spin up in the Zune, and I'm going to put it back in the iPod Classic. I probably have to do another system restore again because I'm kind of making the whole iPod freak out right now. But I'll be able to actually do a system restore with this drive and actually get the iPod Classic back up and running again. So give me a second. Alright, I got the original 30 gig drive back installed. Let's see what it does. If I'm lucky, it'll just boot right back up. Okay, so it definitely doesn't like it. Let me do a hard restart. Sometimes I need to restart it again to get it to register it. Or actually get it to boot up properly. If I have to system restore this thing, yeah, it looks like I have to system restore it. Alright, reconnected it to the computer. It should hopefully pop up in iTunes in a little bit. With that said, I am fairly certain the drive that came with the Zune is shot, so obviously this needs to be replaced. Luckily though, I have a working drive, which is this guy right here, so I'll be able to use that. But yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 80 gig drive back in here and show you what it does. It does nothing. Spoiler alert. Just like before, we're now back to the charging icon coming back and disappearing, coming back and disappearing. Now, I do know I will eventually need to replace the battery in this thing, but the hard drive should still spin up. And clearly, like I shown, this thing does have life, but from the way it's acting and from what I've been able to research on, when it's doing this, that usually means the hard drive cable or the hard drive itself is shot. And since I used a hard drive from my iPod Classic that works in this thing, and yet that drive don't spool up, the cable and the drive need to be replaced. Because as you saw, the 80 gig drive just constantly gets into a restore loop on the iPod Classic. Speaking of the iPod Classic, apparently the battery is low, so I'm going to let that sit for a while before I system restore it again. Because I do want to show that 30 gig drive does in fact work in the iPod Classic, though it is also on the way out, but apparently I got this stupid thing charged for a bit. Turns out I didn't have the hard drive fully seated in the iPod Classic, and that's why I was coming up with the low battery warning. Because as you can see now, I can turn it on like nothing happened, go to whatever song I want to play, and it'll play the song without a problem. So I can more or less end the video here. So I guess the question again, which is, do I need to replace this diff connector? Obviously I need to replace the hard drive because, as you saw, putting this hard drive into the iPod Classic here, it would spin up, but it will be in a constant restore state. But when I put the drive back into here, it does absolutely nothing. So obviously the hard drive does need to be replaced. But since the hard drive isn't even spinning with it plugged into the Zune, I think it is also safe to say the ZIF connector here does in fact need to be replaced. Again, I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty confident that's the issue, but I do want more knowledgeable people to give me an answer because this is the first time me actually trying to do anything like this to a Zune, and I do want to revive this thing. So I think I'll just end the video here.